Ever since the days of old, men would search for wealth untold. They dig for silver and for gold and leave the empty holes. And way down south in the Everglades, where the black water rolls and the sawgrass waves, the eagles fly and the otters play in the land of the Seminole. So blow, blow, Seminole wind, blow like you're never gonna blow again. I'm calling to you like a long lost friend, but I know who you are. And blow, blow from the Okeechobee all the way up to Micanopy, blow across the home of the Seminole, the alligators and the gulls.
Hello, Florida. Political analyst, conservative commentator Ford O'Connell joins me as we discuss the latest developments around the state and especially Southwest Florida. Welcome to our local commentary. I'm Smokin Joe, and this is Cracker Culture, the podcast for Real Floridians. Ford, the first thing I want to talk to you about is you got a new neighbor. I don't know if you realize that Dwayne, the dog bounty hunter, Chapman, has now become a full-time Collier County resident. And I had his people. I've talked to his people, and he spoke out about doing about human trafficking, and he does a lot of good work with the human trafficking. And there is a possibility that he's going to do a show with us in the future. We'll wait for that to come back, but you know, I think it's how do you feel? I mean, going from Hawaii to Marco Island, a little different lifestyle, I'd say.
Well, look, I'm thrilled that Dwayne Chapman wants to make Southwest Florida and Collier County his home. I met the man, I want to say back in 2016 at the Cleveland Republican National Convention. We were both doing TV hits for Fox at the time. Got to meet him a little bit, got to talk with him and his wife then. And I got to say, man, he's a great guy. I don't know about you. I'm a big fan of his show back when it was on A&E. I mean, I must have watched that for 10 years. And I really liked the way he did it just because I used to serve in prosecutors' offices, and to see how bounty hunters moved around was great. But to your point, I think that this new chapter of his life in Collier County in Southwest Florida, he's focusing in on a new thing, human trafficking. And that's something that we really need to pay attention to because human trafficking is happening all over the country.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we're number 3. Florida's number 3 in the United States.
That should not surprise you, not to mention with our connection and the New York drug route, if you will, that goes from Florida to North Carolina to New York City. That doesn't surprise me, plus the port of Miami and many different ways to get in. You know, human trafficking is a big problem, particularly also with the Russians. Not impugning anybody, but with the Russians down in Miami, this is something that we all need to pay attention to.
Well, I want to just kind of start going back to Lee County for a few minutes, and I want to talk. There's a lot of problems in Lee County, and I hate the fact that every time we talk, I've got new issues, and it's always something around the establishment. And I just want to get your opinion on what you actually think what's really going on here. Is this all smoke and mirrors? Because I'm going to play you a video. Look, they are coming after a seated councilwoman, Patty Cummins, and I'll play a little clip. And at the end, I want to talk to you about what makes me very weary of what's going on in Cape Coral.
Well, Cape Coral City Councilwoman Patty Cummins is accused of living outside the district she represents, which is not allowed. And now the state is investigating whether she's qualified to hold office.
One resident says Cummins didn't live in the district when she was elected and still doesn't.
You know, this resident typewrote out a very detailed allegation of fraud, electoral fraud.
Lee County Republican State Committee man Matt Caldwell says the resident who filed the complaint wishes to remain anonymous.
I thought the only thing I can do is provide it to the authorities whose job it is to investigate this and either corroborate it or clear Ms. Cummings' name.
We asked Caldwell if he or the person alleging this has talked to Cummings.
No.
So we asked her ourselves whether this allegation is true.
Everything I have done is legal, and all documentations will be forwarded to the proper hands that is needed.
Well, now look, I don't know what's really going on with Patty, and I've talked to Patty on numerous occasions. I know that she's being tried in the court of public opinion right now, and the same thing's happening to Joe Gambino, which, and I've said this on the last show, Joe Gambino fired a handgun in the city limits. No matter anything else, that man, he done something wrong. Is it as bad as what they're trying to make it out to be? I'm not sure, but I think that we need to let some of these things play out. Now, why would Matt Caldwell go and send this letter to the governor? And this, I can tell you that everybody in Southwest Florida knows who the whistleblower is. So I don't know why that they're saying this is an unsigned document. And I have a source saying that it was signed.
Well, look, I think you're right here. I think you're right in the sense that when it comes to why this Patty Cummings issue is coming to light, something doesn't smell right here. Because as I understand it, this alleged anonymous tipster sent this tip to Matt Caldwell rather than the Cape Coral City Council. Now, why would you do that? It seems to me that if you were trying to abuse the whistleblower process and bring a story to light, you'd send it to the Lee County appraiser? That would be one of the last places I would be sending an anonymous tip that concerns Cape Coral City Council. So something doesn't smell right here. I'm not accusing Matt Caldwell of wrongdoing, but I can just say that if you want to abuse the whistleblower process for political purposes or to distract attention, you might do something the way that this is being laid out.
Well, I'm not trying to accuse Matt Caldwell of wrongdoing, but I do have my suspicions. And the thing that here's really that I don't believe is right at all. He sent that letter as the state committee man, but he never asked anybody on the Lee County REC or discussed it with them. Does he actually have the right to override the entire committee and do something like that? If he sent it as the appraiser, that's one thing. But he sent that letter as the state committee man. Should he not have brought it before the Lee County REC and discussed it before he sent it?
Well, I think my understanding of the rules of the REC is that if you sign your name as the committee man and use it in that capacity, that you need the okay, at least the rest of the executive board of the committee before you do a unilateral action like that. So that seems to run afoul of my understanding of the rules. Maybe I'm reading the rules wrong, but when you are the committee man, you cannot only always act in your own independent capacity, you have to have an approval at least of the executive board, let alone the entire REC itself.
Well, it just seemed a little odd to me. And then, like I said, then we got the Joe Gambino situation. Now, this whole situation, and again, I think that we need to let these cases play out in the court of law, not in the court of public opinion, but with the Gambino. Now, I've got a source and that told me, and I won't reveal my sources, told me that the first people that reached out to Gambino was none other than Treetop Jonathan Martin, and said, hey, we can get you a lawyer. We got you a lawyer, contact this lawyer. Why, as an establishment politician like Jonathan Martin, why is he going to Gambino and saying, hey, you need to get this lawyer? What is it? To me, it's like, hey, we're going to help you out, buddy, but you're going to owe us.
Yeah, look, I'll let you speculate on that. And look, I'm not thrilled that there's an alleged discharge of a weapon in the game, but I think you're right. I think you need to let it play out in a court of law rather than a court of public opinion, because when we look at these two things, are these two of the most pressing issues currently facing Lee County? I don't think so. I think we got a lot of other things under the surface that are far more interesting to people in terms of what we would call corruption.
Well, I just, again, the establishment is, in my opinion, there's too much corruption, and they will not allow an outside investigation, and that bothers me more than anything that they do. The fact that they will not let nobody else investigate. They want to self-investigate, and they've proven it to me time and time again.
Well, you know who else likes to self-investigate, right? That's the Democrats and Joe Biden. And why do they never get caught? Because they're always self-investigating.
Well, exactly. The conservatives, right, especially in Southwest Florida, are doing exactly what the Democrats want. I'm not hearing a bunch of Democrats arguing over what's going on in their party around here. Not one of them. They're unified. That's scary. And that's exactly what they tried to do at the Speaker of the House. They tried to stay unified. Whether they agreed or not, they backed the people that they had elected in and put in those positions.
Well, that's exactly right. Look, I have told you, at least at the national level, as much as I despise the political point of view of the Democrats and the progressives, I've always told you I admire the fact that they stay unified. And unfortunately, what you have in Lee and in Collier County right now is you have an all-out civil war between the conservatives and the establishment.
I had a call, and I'm going to report this, and I don't think you know about this, but we're getting ready to have the Reagan-Lincoln dinner here, and it's sold out, okay? So a young lady who is a reporter for another podcaster put out a piece attacking General Flynn, attacking Alfie Oakes, attacking all these people. The claim was that they had hired a rapper to perform at the Lincoln Reagan dinner, and they'd got 500 signatures to remove him, and they told him that he could not come on to the show. The young man they're talking about, and I don't recall his name, I'll say it wrong, but he's the one that sang the FJB song. That's who it was. So now this young rapper, when I got a hold of his people, I actually went and verified with the vice chair of the Lee County REC. She said, I'll show you my phone. She said, I had one phone call about anything. She said, the problem is there wasn't enough time and we had to cancel all entertainment because the time constraints, and especially with having Donald Trump being one of the keynote speakers. And what has happened now is this other podcaster, because he ain't man enough to do it himself, he's got some young kid that he's grooming. Yes, he's a groomer. Now, y'all bring up the word groomer. This boy is grooming these young Republicans and to making them believe he's the second coming or something, and putting them up to do the things that he ain't man enough to do.
Is this the same podcaster that also says he's a journalist who's busy engaging in political activity and bad and underhanded tactics and trying to push a civil war within the Republican Party, particularly in Southwest Florida? I couldn't imagine who you're talking about.
Well, I think he's more well known here locally in Southwest Florida nowadays as Brenda Lesbian. I think that's what they're calling him nowadays. But, I was real shocked. And so I copied that post and I put it out on my feed. And I said exactly what I just said. I said, I think it's a shame that a man don't want it, because what happens, let's just play the real game. Right now, he's shoot in with Ron DeSantis. We all know this. All right. So what happens if Donald Trump wins? And all this trash talking on General Flynn, Roger Stone, Alfie Oakes, Donald Trump, where's he going to be then? Because you can't burn but so many bridges, and eventually his ego is going to come off to Ron, and Ron's going to see him for exactly what he is, like the other politicians, the real true conservatives see him. He is not the conservative voice. He is the Long Island leech, and I don't know. I mean, he's become so irrelevant in Southwest Florida. I hate to bring him up, and he knows he's so irrelevant that he's putting people up to doing his bidding for him, so it don't tie it back to him.
Well, you're absolutely right. I think that a lot of his potential future is tied to whether or not DeSantis wins the Republican presidential nomination. And again, I don't want to get into Ron versus Don because I'm for Florida, but you're absolutely right. If Donald Trump wins the nomination, then Leslie might want to learn how to code, because he won't have any other receipts to hang his career upon.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to be real honest now. I don't care if it upsets him or anybody else. I'm sure they're going to come after me, and I don't care. I'm man enough to defend.
Well, no, let me tell you something. Leslie has trashed me, and I've been nothing but nice when I've spoken to him in the past. He goes off of secondhand information, pretends that he's some sort of journalist when he is not, and then takes a license to trash everyone for political purposes that he's being paid for while trying to hide behind the First Amendment. To me, it is one of the most despicable displays of fake journalism I've ever seen.
And it really makes me wonder why Erica Donalds is teaming up with him to do his show. Are they okay with that type of behavior? And, you know, he had a man go on his show and called Denise Nystrom a bitch. This is the same guy that I've exposed the school board for a possible sunshine violation with.
Well, to your point, I can't speak to the Donalds. I mean, that's way out of my wheelhouse. I think that there's a lesson here, Joe, and that is when you see folks like this come onto the scene and rise very quickly, you need to be asking questions about their credentials and who they are and whether or not they are just an opportunist who's trying to grift at the right time.
Well, I'm not knocking Erica. I'm just wondering, why would you keep an affiliation with somebody that's already showed an affiliation? And look, I haven't put a podcast out because so much else went on that I'm going to put out. And the contractor has sent me, I cannot tell you, I can't even count how many messages. They're all vulgar. They all have gay connotations. And, you know, I ain't really seen Brandon but with one woman the entire time I've known him. And that didn't last but about 2 days. So I kind of wonder if, you know, and they're both in stature, they're about the same size. I kind of wonder, I mean, is this something? I mean, am I in the middle of these two lovers spat? Why are they coming after me when I asked a question, never mentioned that person's name until he come after me, and he come after me, and I know that some of the same things that he said to me come straight from things that Brandon said about me on other podcasts.
Well, let me say this. I'm going to stay away from impugning someone's character. I'm going to judge Brendan Leslie by his actions. And by his actions is they relate to me and relate to others I know. And frankly, he needs to take a look in the mirror, and more people need to know that he's not everything he says he is. When it comes to that contractor that we've discussed, you know, you got to question everything about that, because that does not seem to me like a stable person you necessarily want working on your job.
Well, I promise you that after today that you'll see. I'll put out the full show, and hopefully, and I'll tell the folks right now, it is so vile and vulgar, the words that he has put to me in text. And why are people so stupid that they text stuff like that, knowing that people's going to screenshot it and keep it and save it?
Well, maybe you need to do what the drug cartels do and learn to use WhatsApp.
Yeah, maybe he needs to learn to use WhatsApp. Well, I'll move away from that right now. And I don't know if you're familiar, but there was a real tragedy in your area, and I want to show you this clip here.
A shooting in Lehigh Acres. A mob of people stopped two grandparents headed to the Keys with their boat. A shooter opened fire at the intersection of Homestead Road and Milwaukee Boulevard in Lehigh Acres, hitting both the grandparents. Now, investigators are hoping you can identify anybody in that cell phone video to find the shooter.
Tonight, NBC2's Hope Salmon is talking with the victim's grandson, desperate to find out who did this and why.
There's so many people in this area, they need more police.
Gail and Brian live a few blocks away from where two people were shot early Sunday morning in Lehigh Acres. The victims were driving on Homestead Road and Milwaukee Boulevard. You can see a boat attached to their truck and the shooter banging on the window before pulling the trigger. Brian knew something happened driving by hours later.
I had to go down to Walmart's at 6 in the morning and it was all blocked off. So
Cody Langford is the grandson of the two people who were shot. He didn't want to share their names or photos because no one is in custody for the shooting.
Not very many people can survive a shot through the neck.
His grandpa's in the hospital after getting shot in the neck. His grandmother was released yesterday. He says the whole family is in shock.
Pray that, these guys get caught.
The sheriff's office says investigators are following leads and asking for people to reach out with any information. Local in Lehigh Acres, Hope Salmon, NBC2.
That's tragic. I mean, why can't we be safe? I've never felt like I wasn't safe in Lee County when I grew up the way it is now, and especially in Lehigh Acres. I'm sorry, Lehigh is just changing.
Yeah, it has, and let me tell you, especially on the main drag there, it's not good. You see the Lee County Sheriff's substation right there, and it's a real problem, and it's only getting more dangerous. And I've talked to Sheriff Carmine about this. It's something that he's trying to put all the resources there and trying to move pieces around. I mean, heck, you come off of certain roads and you've got dummy sheriff's cars there just to slow people down and to create warnings because, it's unfortunately become a powder keg, and there needs to be better policing in Lehigh Acres.
I totally agree. And the one thing I wish, I think Sheriff Carmine has really put forth an effort to show the community he's working hard to bust the drug dealers and try to make Southwest Florida, Lee County, a safer place to live. But it just seems like we're growing so fast, so many new residents are coming to this area, and we've got problems. We've got problems with our school board. It's tragic, and that's something else I want to bring up because this is something.
Let me add one thing to that. Because Lehigh Acres is in my neck of the woods. One thing that I do want to say that at the rate that Lehigh Acres is growing, it's going to be bigger than Cape Coral. We got problems in Cape Coral the same way because both areas are growing too fast and you don't necessarily have the resources there, whether it's not only policing, fire, water, power, etc. And this is a real problem, and we have to start laying a better foundation in both places, particularly in Cape Coral, now that it's rebuilding. But this is a situation that if you don't sort of nip it in the bud, particularly with crime early on, it's going to be next to impossible at the rate it's growing to stop it.
Now, something else I want to talk to you about. Now, I've questioned whether sunshine has been violated at the school board. There's several other questions, and I've had a few whistleblowers step out to me in the transportation department. During the hurricane protocols, FEMA paid extra money to the school district so that the people working in transportation, now I'm talking about the mechanics, so they worked, and the requirement was that they worked until 3:30 every 5 days a week. Okay. Now it come to my attention that one of the supervisors was getting paid till 3:30 while he was at Pepsi Cola by 1:30 working for them. And here's that's bad enough. But here's what the bad thing is. I've got some receipts. You see who the receipts are? To the chair of the school board, Armored Persons, and to the superintendent. They got these receipts where it was notified. They were notified, put on notice that this person had done this. So then I started to go through my sources. Apparently, none of the other school board members that I know of, or at least the ones that's not in Terry Miller's cabal, knew anything about this. So they talked to the man, and he promptly, I guess, resigned. From what I'm told, he resigned. But here's my question: he double dipped. He still took our taxpayers' money, and from what I'm being told, he's not the only one. And they are threatening these whistleblowers, telling them to mind their own business. And Roger Lloyd's got 2 years. He's the main guy. He's got 2 years to retire, and I think he's not. He should never have ever had the job in the first place. Why did the superintendent? Why did the chair of the Lee County School Board? Why wasn't this addressed immediately when they got their signed receipts? Why wasn't it addressed immediately?
Well, I think that's the right question is, why wasn't this addressed immediately? Or at least at the minimum, why are we not talking about this now outside of this podcast? And to your point is, why didn't they share it at least with the rest of the school board or with other colleagues in the same position of power? Why does it seem that they're keeping it to themselves? And then you've raised the big question. This is probably not the only case of double dipping. And stealing local taxpayer money and federal taxpayer money, which we all pay into, is really bad. And this cannot be the only person, okay? Because I'm going to tell you, Joe, I remember what happened in Hurricane Katrina, because at that time I was teaching at the University of Mississippi. And I will tell you that when disaster takes place, criminal activity runs wild.
Well, look, we know it ain't the only person that's double dipping. There was a whistleblower that put out a video. I've got a copy of it that I can put out later. And he showed the whole transportation department working on boats, working on ATVs, working on motorcycles, boat engines, doing repairs for other people while they were supposedly supposed to be working on our buses, working on our product, but they were double dipping yet again.
Well, that might be triple dipping when you throw in an extra side hustle. I don't know.
Now, here's another thing. They offered Logan Leonard a promotion, and he turned it down, which would have been a very nice pay raise for him. And you can't help but speculate why he turned it down. Does he know that there's more fixing to come out?
Well, look, this goes to what you and I talk about all the time. is that we need to have transparency and accountability if we're going to have good government in Lee County. And these are the types of things that you should be investigating because of how much money that school board in particular controls and distributes each year. You need to have confidence in Lee County that the residents believe that the money is going to what they think it's going to, which we believe is to be a safe, on time, reliable education. And what we're finding out is it's based on a faulty foundation with a lot of people with their hands out stealing.
Well, and you know, what's going on with the support staff? And I'm going to speak on behalf of the bus drivers for a minute. Now, me and you both are conservatives. I've never been a union man. I've never even considered it. However, I've got to say this. These bus drivers, they're forcing them to take like 7 and 8 runs a day, which now I hold a CDL license. I drive semis. I know the laws. There's only so many hours you're allowed to drive. They are forcing these drivers to drive over the maximum hours, and they're wearing them down, and it's not for no extra pay.
Well, I think that that's the problem. Remember, when we talk about things, look, these bus drivers are vital to making sure that Lee County public schools work. And from what I understand, you're right. They seem to be getting run into the ground. This is something the school board should be addressing. And like you, I'm not a union person. But when you start to see someone get run into the ground like that, you've got to understand. You have to wonder: are you going to put additional resources into it? Are you going to expand the fleet of drivers? What are you going to do to fix the problem? Because this is untenable.
Well, at the very least, again, it needs to be audited.
Yes.
Just look, I would actually back off on the school board a little bit if they would get an outside forensic audit, and they would start with procurement, start with transportation, and you know, if they showed me they was trying to be transparent, but I've got proof, and like I said, I've got another video that I'm gonna put out that I don't want to include you in, because as I'm trying to, I feel like I have a sunshine violation case against the school board. It's more and more looking like I've got a much bigger case that falls in line with RICO.
Wow. Look, let me just say this. I think you're absolutely right when it comes to the school board and the amount of money we're talking about, and making sure you have a reliable, deliverable, on-time education, is that you need to look at transportation and you need to look at the vendors, because something seems a little crazy there. You know, there's an old saying, and I'm not saying this is the case, and that is, Joe, you know why people rob the banks, Joe? Because that's where the money's at. And I think that it's important to know that.
Well, there's a lot of money that's been unanswered for. Well, I want to talk about the City Hall meeting, the special meeting in Collier County yesterday. And, you know, I was very taken aback. I'd seen the Pride Parade over in Cape Coral they had a couple of days. And, you know, while I feel like everybody has a right to express whatever they want to, I think there draws a line to when it is inappropriate. And we asked the City Hall in Naples to not allow the adult drag queen show that they had approved in Cambria Park. And I didn't hear one person at this meeting speak up. And I'll tell you, and the thing that blew my mind, and I'm going to give this man credit, there was one school board member showed up to speak up on behalf of the children, and that was Tim Moshier. Tim Moshier was the one and only one of the entire school board that took time out of his day to be there to help protect the children. And that says a lot to me about Tim Moshier.
For the record, my name is Tim Moshier, zip code 34139. I'm a parent, grandparent, married to my wife for 35 years, over 30 years in the trucking business. I've hauled, you name it, I've hauled it. I've done a lot of shows, entertainments, concerts throughout South Florida down to the Keys. And many of the concerts I've been to are adult entertainment only. As you guys have said before, this is an adult entertainment. Children shouldn't be there. Many of the shows I've hauled equipment and sound stages to didn't do that. Don't allow children under 18. I don't agree with them, but they have the right to do that. You know, let's keep it as adult entertainment and in a private setting. Also, as far as many people being in the community, they've come across the Pride fence and they're not coming back to me.
Yeah, I've known Tim for quite a while, and he's a pretty stand-up guy. And yeah, I think that speaks volumes. And I think when it comes to Cambier Park, I mean, this is a central point in Naples. And I think it's important to say that this isn't about LGBTQ rights. As you and Alfie pointed out in the past, what this is about is what is age appropriate for young kids. And I think that that's the key. And as long as you're talking about what is age appropriate, I think you're on very solid ground throughout Southwest Florida, because at the end of the day, it is about the kids.
Well, I'm gonna play a video from that meeting yesterday, and so y'all can see. And as of yesterday, after the meeting, the only one that had changed their mind because of the heat at that time was the mayor. So it was still pretty much the other. They didn't have the vote, and they're still going to carry on with the adult drag queen show. But let me play this video, and then I'll tell you what happened.
But we need to, in order of time. Please don't laugh, sir. Alfie Oakes?
Good morning. I think my name is Alfie Oakes, 7695 Santa Cruz Court, Naples. I do have a business that employs 130 people in the city of Naples, and I've been to Cambier Park with all my children for, hundreds of hours. And I think a good bit of you might know who I am. We are here to ask for a request for you to reconsider the votes that you made regarding this drag show at our parks. And let me be very clear, this is not about gay, lesbian, LGBTQ. It has nothing to do with that. This has to do with what the majority of your constituents consider filth displayed openly to kids. It's not something that, it would be different if it was fenced off, but it's not. It's not when I take my daughter to the park, she would be subjected to that. So this is not about that. It wouldn't matter if it was a right-wing gun show and they were having this, we would be against it. It wouldn't matter if it's a pirate show. This is about the children. And if you do know or you don't know, 2 years ago, I was actually jumping up and down screaming at the school board, telling them that if they didn't make the right decision, if they didn't follow what I believe is true in God's word and the community, that I was going to do everything within my power to remove them from office. And at that time, I was yelling and screaming because I didn't think they really knew that I'd follow through on my mission. And as you may or may not know, we were 100% effective on that mission. We took out the commissioners, the county commissioners that voted against the mask. We took out the school board members. And this is not a threat. I'm just asking you to reconsider. I think that many of you might have made that decision based on trying to go along to get along, or maybe fear of retaliation from the LGBTQ community. But this is not about that. This is about our children. This is about doing the right thing. Amen. And if you do decide to stand your position, I'm only going to have you consider of how easy it's going to make me. When I send out thousands of mailers, I'll put in $500,000 of my own personal money. When I send out thousands of mailers showing that each of you decided to have this filth in front of our children. That's what we're here about today. And there's a lot of people in the community that feel exactly the same way that I do. I'm not an owner that's absentee. I'm around the people at every one of my businesses every single day. And it doesn't matter if it's at the organic food and thought store or if it's at Seed to Table. I feel like I have a finger on the pulse of this community as good as anybody around here. And I just promise you that we're here not to make threats or anything like that. We just want to take care of our children. So thank you for hearing me.
Excuse me, I have Teddy. Smokin Joe, Alexander Sullick, Steve Hayes.
I'm Smokin Joe, and under the protest of my constitutional right, I'm going to go ahead and give you my zip code, which is 34119. I'm an advocate for Florida, my home state, and children, and I know most of you up there on this board are not, so you might not be familiar with me. I have two daughters, 5 and 6 years old, who frequently have play dates at Cambria Park. My wife and I consider that a safe place for our kids, and it should be just that. First, I want to commend the council members who had the common decency to object to the pressure of the woke movement to subject our children to sexual obscenities of public displays and adult entertainment. I witnessed a vile behavior and language used during a Pride event 2 weekends ago in Cape Coral. Remarks were made defamatory to God and berating of pastors who have a job to help people seek salvation. I am a free speech absolutist, and we all have freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States, even though many of you walk all over them. I will tell you that I will have a camera crew in Cambria Park, and now you can guarantee this, and I will promise you this one fact that you can be sure of. When adults are allowed to expose children to indecent exposure, which is a crime, I will add in case you are unfamiliar with that, I will file a lawsuit against all of those of you who approved this, as well as the flamboyant event coordinators, as well as the city of Naples. I also have gifts for the male members who voted for this. Since it's appropriate to expose our children, I have purchased you guys some outfits so that y'all be able to go, and it's nothing for you to worry about, officer. Here you go, so that those of you that can go, y'all can have your own outfits, so y'all can maybe attend. So these are up for you guys that voted for it. While I don't think you probably could adequately fill it, I brought you something to help pad it up a little bit. And Vice Mayor McCabe, I didn't have one small enough for you, but I think that tea bag will suffice. If you don't say no to the drag queen show, you better step down. And if you don't think you want to find out who I am, I have defeated the city council in Fort Myers Beach. I have defeated the city council in Key West, Florida, and I will bring you to the ground. Thank you for more time.
Thank you.
Again, and before Alfie spoke, Pastor Anthony Thomas, former Marine, he got up and spoke very elegantly, and at the end of it, we left there, and they still were going to allow the drag show. Well, I got a phone call. Hold on, I got a phone call right before we started the show that they had to reconsider, and they will not be allowing the adult drag show to happen in Cambria Park. They will allow the Pride event, and which that's fine. However, I assured them when they told me that the show wouldn't be there, and you'll see in the video, I told them, I said, look, I said, I have fought City Hall in Fort Myers Beach and won. I have fought City Hall in Key West and won. And I did it alone without an attorney. And if they think that if I find indecent exposure and my child is exposed to it, that I will not sue every one of them that voted for it, along with the promoters and the city of Naples, they're wrong. And I am going to have a camera crew out there, and I promised them that. And I will.
Well, you should, because you want to hold people accountable, and it's about good government. I mean, two things are that. One, I totally agree that Alfie has a finger on the pulse of the community. But two, both of you in this are making a very good case along with the pastor. And it's about, again, and this is something the left doesn't want to admit to, it's about what is age appropriate. We saw this with the parental rights bill in Tallahassee, and the same thing is true when it comes to Cambier Park. I think the idea is that, okay, you're going to have the Pride Parade because you're going to have the Pride Parade. Remember, there is a sizable gay community in South Collier County. And now the question is, and I think you're right, if there is obscenity, you need to be pointed out.
And I guarantee you, if I walked down the street and I was doing something obscene, and I've even seen truck drivers get arrested for indecent exposure, because they didn't have nowhere else to use the bathroom but in between their tires. But they can do the drag show in front of the kids in the park. I'll never be okay with that.
Well, I totally agree with you. You and I have agreed on this for several weeks now, and I think now that they've sort of, if you will, split the baby in half, I think the question is whether or not, if they just have a pride parade and it goes like other parades, great. If it winds up being something more than that, and that's why I think you should do it, then we should come back and discuss exactly how this turned out.
Well, we're going to end the show, but before I go, I want to talk about a story that I posted on social media, and I'm going to put up a post at the end for everybody to see, and I beg you to look at this. There was a family, a young girl, she and her father were not speaking. Apparently the father had some issues, and because she wouldn't speak to her father, the father come in and killed the mother, the grandparents, killed 4 of them, and the daughter that wasn't speaking to him, the young daughter. The only 2 in that family that were not killed were 2 small boys. Oh. Now, the reason that this affects me is these are a Florida family. And one of my best friends come to me because he works with one of the family, a sister and a niece of this family. These people have got to bury 4 family members, and any help that you can give these people, please do. I mean, and again, it's just a tough conversation to talk about. I will put out the information at the end of the podcast for everybody to see. If we don't take care of our people in Florida, nobody else is going to, and we've seen that time and time again. We're going to take care of Ukraine. We're going to take care of everybody else. But Floridians, we take care of Floridians.
Well, I think you said it all, Joe. I mean, that's an unimaginable tragedy. And what are the little kids going to do? But I think that's the point. We got to take care of our own. That's what we mean by being a strong community and a strong state. So I hope people do help out.
Folks, I appreciate you watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to our videos. Please contact the show if you need. The email address is right here going along the bottom. And Ford, I want to thank you. I appreciate every week. I feel like I get smarter every time I talk to you.
The feeling's mutual, my friend.
Brother, you have a good week, and I tell you what, we'll talk soon. I'll keep you in the loop on some of this other craziness that we talk about on the side.
All right, my friend. Be well.
We love you, Florida. Love, peace, and gator grease. From Fort O'Connell and Smokin Joe, God bless. Faith family in Florida. We'll see you later.